All right, everybody, we are back with the last run of the night, Gravity Circuit. So I'm going to pass this on over to EternalRedGamer to get us off and running. The show is yours.
Thank you, thank you. Welcome everybody. I am Eternal Red Gamer. I have my buddy here, Tempest Mask 1000, helping out on the comms. Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it.
Absolutely glad to be here, Red. And hello once again, friends and fellow gamers. I said I'd be back. I was not lying. This is going to be awesome. Y'all have killed that incentive. Thank you all for meeting that. Let's see what we got here, Red. How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling really good. And again, thank you for everybody that has been part of the stream, donated, and to hit the incentive. I will say that any percent is a great run to watch. But the minimalist run is fun in the sense that it is a little bit more difficult because you literally have nothing to go with. So I currently, to my knowledge, have the world record for the minimalist run, and I'm hoping to break that record on stream for you guys. So I'm ready to go. Let me just queue up this.
Before we do, a quick suggestion from Farriator. The whole flashing thing. If anybody's seeing some flashing, Farriator's saying that turning on VSync might be able to help with that. Do you want to do that really quick?
Sure.
Okay.
By the way, it's semi-intentional.
Yeah, that's fair. Might as well do it just for the sake of safety in case anybody watching is a little concerned about that. But yeah. That's all there is to it, so,
Okay.
There we go. I think that's a little bit better. We'll just work with it. If we gotta turn it back off, we got the options during the mid-game. Alright, so, do we start time again when we gain control of Kai, or just when we select the difficulty?
Just when we select the difficulty, because we, pretty much loaded up. So, I'll do the countdown. Alright, 3, 2, 1, and go.
Alright, here we go, folks. Okay, so one thing to quickly get out of the way. Gravity Circuit is what you would take if you infused Mega Man with a little bit of Super Smash Bros. Combat, and there's going to be a lot of just wonderful, wonderful stuff that's going to be on display for y'all today. So, right now, we're going to start things off by explaining the basic kit that involves our main character, Kai, aka the Gravity Circuit. He's got general directional moves. He's got stuff that can go up, down, left, right, and all that good jazz. He's got a hook shot which lets him grapple through the stage as well. He's also got what's called burst techniques. And, well, that's going to involve pressing a certain button while holding a certain direction. Normally, in the main gameplay, you can assign different moves to the cardinal directions and neutral directions. However, because we've met the minimalist incentive, we are not going to be seeing Red do that. The whole point of this category is that you have to beat the game without collecting a single rescuable robot. You cannot collect any health or energy upgrades.
That's bad.
And, oh, nice save there. And then, last but certainly not least, you cannot purchase any booster chips or burst techniques. You have to only go with what the game gives you when starting things off. We're going to quickly get into a boss fight here with the Record Tank, which is simply going to use this little wiggle strat because, for some interesting reason, Domesticated Ant Games gave the Record Tank no invincibility frames when it comes to the boss itself, and so it's just able to take constant damage, basically like a mini boss would. Simple as that. And that's the intro stage. Which, by the way, I want to give a quick shout out to Mr. Farriator, who is currently watching the run and is one of 2 of the main members within Domesticated Ant Games, the dev. And also a big shout out to Dominic Nemark, who is the composer and character designer of this game, and you might recognize his music for other games like Chenso Club, as well as Mega Man X Corrupted. Such a fantastic OST for sure.
Love that soundtrack. So right now we're doing speedrun mode, which they just recently added in the most recent update. So it literally cuts out all dialogue, and it really has cut out about 15 to 20 minutes of overall, like, gameplay with the story mode. Oh, crap. Sorry, go ahead.
No big deal. So one of the big things that it does is it removes dialogue entirely. It removes certain cutscenes from happening. It can speed up other cutscenes. And on top of that, you also immediately start with the Flying Strike, which is your most basic burst technique. And normally, if you were playing off of speedrun, or sorry, non-speedrun mode, there would be a cutscene that would see the character that we get our burst techniques from giving it to Kai after he rescues him from a few virus army bots. So we won't necessarily be seeing any purchases here. We did not see that happen there because speedrun mode is on. Overall, the input that, well, basically the playtesters of this game gave to the devs when it came to just rounding out what speedrun mode should have has effectively come together here. And I would especially like to give a shout out to one of our main moderators, that being Gordon Ramsay, who is indeed one of the playtesters, and you might also know him for running a few other games like, well, mainly Sonic the Hedgehog 2006. Gordon is a pretty cool dude, and really contributed a lot of his time just trying to see what he could lab out when it came to just playing with all these early builds, and I'm quite frankly jealous of his ability to do so, but he did a wonderful job contributing.
I've been doing so bad so far at the start of this. I'll make up for it at the end of the run.
Oh, absolutely. Like, this stage may be one of the easiest first stages to pick just in general, but some of the obstacles can indeed trip you up, and it's not really anyone's fault. It's just a matter of how the level is designed to really challenge your platforming reflexes, and, you know, that's about it.
You mind explaining the grapple hook?
Absolutely. So the hook shot, it plays very similar to Zero's chain rod from Mega Man Zero 2, where, if you're familiar with that weapon, you can hook it onto solids, basically walls, floors, or whatever the case. You can fire it in all sorts of different directions, and most importantly, you can damage enemies with it as well. It does not deal a whole lot of damage per se, so we're still going to mostly rely on our punches and also our flying strike, because one of the big things about bosses from here on out, aside from, well, again, the mini bosses, is that if you hit them enough times, they will eventually go into that iframe mode, which you then gotta wait just a little bit in order to, yeah, they do not become hittable in the, well, actually, I don't, actually,
wow,
no, that
he
wasn't
jumped.
even his, that wasn't even his burst technique. What even happened there, I wonder?
I don't know.
Well then, that was certainly different. I think we could easily say that's never happened before.
Not on my watch.
Yeah, I always say it, and you cannot stop me. But anyhow, that was Ray, also known as Optic Circuit, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a while since I said the name of his actual designation. So, similar to Mighty Number 9, where bosses have a mighty number, a full name, and a short name designation, the whole thing about the Rebel circuits here is that they have a circuit designation as well as a proper name as well. But yeah, as mentioned, we are indeed going to turn off VSync, so now you should be able to see the game a little bit smoother. And we do apologize for the little testing out just to see if it would affect the, or rather fix the flashing, but yeah, not much we can really do about that, so hopefully it's not too intense for your viewing displeasure. But with that in mind, we now move into Patch Circuit, also known as Trace. So this is a junkyard stage. If you're familiar with robot masters like Junkman, or perhaps Mavericks like Morph Moth. Gosh, that's a tongue twister to say sometimes.
Morph Moth.
Then
Morph
you
Moth.
might, yeah, my favorite X2 Maverick, basically. It's that kind of stage. It's got a bit of trash all around the stuff. We got these little gloop blobs, which one of the benefits of running the non-minimalist category is that at this point in the run, we would normally have the booster chip called Catch Block, which gives Kai super armor. And so it prevents him from being knocked back when he takes damage, but also against hazards like the goop, it does not immobilize him, so he will not get stuck in midair just like what happened right there. One of the downsides, too, about the gloop is that if you stay stuck in that for too long, you will eventually start to take more damage, which is never fun. It's slow, though, very gradual, not hard. It's not like it's going to do all that much at a time. But as you can see, we do not have that luxury, so we got to be a little bit mindful of things. So now we're coming up to this mini-boss here, and Normally at this point, we would try to start making use of some other boss burst techniques. As mentioned with the Wrecker tank, fellas like this guy do not have a iframe invulnerability period, so using abilities like the Current Arc, which is basically a electrified spread shot, will really deal a lot of damage to his overall HP and just like shred it, basically. There's not really much else to it. Yeah, so far we're looking pretty good here. So if Red does die, it's not a big deal because obviously with most modern games, this does not have a traditional life system, and any checkpoint that Red hits, he'll just go back to that. And similar to indie game Cyber Shadow or retro game Shatterhand, you can use those checkpoints to completely recover your HP, as well as give you full-on burst. But Red's not opting to do that because he only took 2 points of damage, and he's still got both burst pips in tow. So he's going to save a little bit of his bits, which bits are the currency of this game. He's going to save that up a little bit and use it for whenever he does need it, because with each time you use the checkpoint, the price does increase more and more. It does eventually get to a maximum point, though, where I believe it'll cost 300 at the most, and it cannot go any higher than that. If I'm incorrect, then it's 500. It has been a while since I've tested that out, because it's just simply been a while.
Yeah, I think it's 500, but then again, I don't remember because, you get to a certain point, you play the game, you just end up ramping through it pretty good.
One of the big problems about Trace as a boss is that she can use her ads to really mess up our combos. One of the big things about knocking a boss back is that if they do get flung or ragdolled, they will eventually hit their iframe period once they are done with that overall motion, no matter how many times you've hit them. So one of the things to try and keep them chained in the combo is the use of multiple burst techniques. The Flying Strike basically pushes them horizontally, but if we had access to, say, the Rising Upper, which is one of the first things that we would immediately get after the intro stage, we can further increase the amount of time they're flung into the air and really shred the HP bar like it's nothing. And as you noticed with both circuits that we faced up to now, all bosses will have a burst technique of their own from here on out. So, whereas we have our own, so do they, but, there's not really much to it aside from they're mostly going to be invulnerable during these burst techniques. Mostly, I say. There should be at least a couple of exceptions to this. But right now, we've entered the cooler circuit stage, also known as Blades level, and the mountains here is not only host to a bunch of hazards, which can really mess you up, but it's also got a robo-dog that you can rescue as well at the very beginning if you just go left.
Unfortunately, we will not be seeing that.
Right, because if we did, we would accidentally invalidate the Minimalist run, and we do not quite want that.
And there's going to be one trick that I will be risking technically invalidating the run. It's a pretty cool trick, and it's the only way I'll really be able to show you that trick in the Minimalist run. Oh, I'm gonna need this help, just in case. Oh.
One of the interesting things about the little coin dropping, flying, floating boxes, I guess you could call them, is there is a random chance that it'll drop a health pickup. Sometimes you're lucky, sometimes you're not. So we did not quite mention yet that, as you saw, whenever Red hits a stage hazard like spikes or anything resembling that, Kai gets sent back to the closest, what we would call safe ground, which is any kind of solid platform that is not inhabited by an enemy or is nowhere near anything dangerous like a pit or whatnot. And it does waste a little bit of time. Like, there is no way that you can avoid that. It's always going to happen whenever it happens, and it's not the worst thing because, on one hand it beats insta-death, but on the other, doing that too many times can certainly set you back a little bit on a PB pace.
Yep.
Now, the good news is that as long as you're in the middle of iframes already, you will not take any further damage from the stage hazard. So, while it might look like hitting those things multiple times is really, really bad, it's actually not, as long as Kai has not fully worn off his iframes, and then they will start up once again off the timer fresh as new, and whatever else we say, really. So now we're moving into Blade's fight, and one thing you can do against Blade is you can toss the icicles right back at him, but really we're not going to just worry about that, and instead we're going to try to avoid his little cyclone attack right there. And because he's a flying boss, he is a little bit harder to hit, but also be mindful of how the icicles can freeze you. If we did have catch block on us, then we would have been able to shrug the freeze effect off, just like how it was with the slime in Trace's level.
It's also good to note that that little chip there is a data chip, so enemies drop those randomly, so that way you'll be able to kind of see what they're about. That does not invalidate the Minimalist run, because sometimes it's unavoidable to dodge those as you're killing enemies running through the game.
One of the things that we've also tried to account for with those data chips is the 100% run, where there are a couple of character chips that are only accessible after you have beaten the final level. And we have effectively voted that you do not need to collect those in order to have a full-on 100% valid run. But on top of that, too, we also do not count the achievements, because that would require a little bit more time and presumably a category of its own, which requires you to play the game at least 3 times, I would say.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Yeah, once normally, once through Circuit Mode and New Game Plus at the same time, so Circuit Mode Plus, and then one done on, well, Minimalist, because if you do a full-on Minimalist run, the game will give you all 4 of the Minimalist categories, or rather achievements, where you've beaten the game without collecting a health pickup, energy pickup, burst technique, or booster chip. I would know, considering that the first ever Minimalist run I did, which, I kid you not, took 4 hours, yeah, I got all those achievements at once, and I was suddenly thinking to myself, oh, right, that's a thing.
So one thing you'll notice that I've been doing quite often is that I'm damage tanking, because a lot of times it's not worth it to try to defeat an enemy. You're just like right here, you're just going to tank hits. I'm going to take another one right here because it's almost impossible to avoid.
Cable Stage has a lot of that kind of stuff going for it, because when it comes to those electric traps, let's just say that it's not the easiest task around, and I'd probably say it's a good enough reason as to why Domesticated Ant Games made the stage-specific achievement for this one not taking damage from a platform that can go zap. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean the electric attack that causes it to go zap. You just don't want to stand on the platform by the time it gets electrified.
I opted not to hit the checkpoint because I thought I was going to get more health, so oh, crap. So I have to be a little bit more careful here, unless I get a health pickup right here. I'm about to get one right. Oh, nice.
Yeah, there you go. The game heard your plea. Good stuff. You're also seeing him hit those switches. Those can go both ways, so despite the fact that it looks like there's another electrical obstacle up ahead that he can deactivate, chances are it's actually the same thing that he just went through. The reason they added this is because in case the player needs to backtrack, they're obviously accounting for that, which is good. Prevents the need of having to restart the stage entirely in case you missed a rescuable robot or anything like that. So fun fact about Cable and Ray from earlier, both of these guys were demo bosses that if you were able to play the Steam demo of this game before the full-on release, you were able to do these levels with most of the unlockable stuff in tow. Particularly the burst techniques that came from the other bosses that you would have faced, and then a plethora of the booster chips as well. Which, booster chips, there is one that Red should have active right now, and that is the energy amplifier?
Yes, because you get that at the very beginning. Normally it would have been an item that the nurse gives you at the start of the game, but because we're on speedrun mode, it automatically becomes equipped with Flying Strike.
Right, and what that does is anytime you collect, or rather, no, sorry, not collect, anytime that you send an enemy into a red ragdoll mode, you will get a lot more energy from them as a result of them exploding and stuff like that. And to further explain the concept, when you initially defeat an enemy, they go into a gray stunned mode, which you can then pick them up using your hook shot and then just carry them along with you for as long as you need to until, I guess, they explode when you eventually let them go. If they are red, though, then you can't grab them and they will explode. Which doesn't damage you. That's not to insinuate that it does. It just means that they're basically done. You just can't do anything with them anymore. It's kind of funny, the concept of just being able to throw things at another, but it just leads to some really epic stuff. Like, some of the cool things that you can do just to look cool in this game all comes down to some amazing planning that just went into the combat on the whole, and just it feels so together, and I cannot help but love that about a game like this. So now we got a traditional Inti Creates highway stage. If you're familiar with the train stages from Mega Man Zeroes 1 and 2, or perhaps highway stages like, say, Brandish from Mighty Number 9, or even like what we just saw with Mega Man ZX last run before this one. Yeah, this is the similar concept going here,
Crap.
except don't touch the floor. It's actually the road, and instead of instant killing you, it'll still count as hazard damage. Oh!
I didn't think that was going to happen there.
That's a little unfortunate. So, hey, not necessarily a deathless run, but
Nope.
hey, you know, we tried.
Do you mind going over the car jump? I'm about to do one in a little bit, and then I guess you can go over dive kick cancels.
Right. So, the dive kick that Kai can perform is cancelable with any kind of melee attack going on. So, if you are about to do the little dive kick followed by the spin before it, you can cancel it then, you can cancel it mid-kick. But what Red is going to try and do right there is he was going to use the momentum of the hoverboard, because the whole point of its properties is to allow Kai to stand on it and follow its movement without him having to sort of slide off it. But in doing so, the coding of the game also gives him some extra mobility speed, which when used with his movement makes him much faster. So that's basically what Red is trying to do with the hoverboard when it's time to get off, and not really much else to it. So as you see, we got the little missile section right there. Something you can do to really trivialize it is just punch, like, repeatedly. Oh god!
Unfortunately, we're going to have to do this all over again because somehow I mistimed that jump.
I feel you, man. Any casual player will sympathize with that, because some people probably wouldn't have realized that catch block with the super armor can completely prevent that, but even then, the missiles are still a bit of a pain in that you don't want to take too much damage from those.
Right. And then, I was just going to say, in this chopper fight, it does different attacks during the phases, and those missiles that you just saw are the second best option. And the first best option are the little balls. Now, I'm going to try this box jump and hope... Oh, no! I messed it up.
Oh, no! Oh.
The run is dead. I mistimed it.
Oh, God. He told me that this was going to cut. I mean, yeah, he did warn you all that this was probably going to happen, but
I'm sorry, I failed you all. Pretend like nobody ever saw that.
In all fairness, the likelihood of world record was probably getting shorter and shorter anyway with each mistake, so if it makes you feel any better, at least we still get to put on a good show.
That we do. I'm just disappointed.
Yeah, I get you. I will admit, it can happen to the best of us. Yeah, words are hard sometimes, but I totally feel you there. Bit, also known as Shift Circuit, is basically going all Captain Falcon on us. He's going to try and go as fast as possible, and his moves can come at seemingly a moment's notice, but he does have a few tells that give us an idea of what move he will use. So for instance, if he points his finger up to the sky, he's probably going to use the wave slash attack, the little energy projectile that he does. If he's going to do a dash, you're probably going to see him disappear, and then he'll more than likely spawn behind you. Basically, just try to read whatever he's about to do, and you should be able to come out of this practically damageless. Which, by the way, if you do, the game does give you an extra bonus of 2,000 bits.
We didn't see that rescue.
We did not see that rescue. Hey, man, you still got a good stuff. Still got a really good pace going on here, so let's keep this up for the fans.
Mr. Ferrier says it's a pretty tight jump. It is. I jumped to I I think I jumped too early. I should have been trailing the back of the car. And that would have been better.
Kudos for at least trying to make it look swag. So now, personally, a favorite stage of mine in medleys. I just love the concert theme. I am a bit of a musician. I don't do it professionally, mind you, and I'm very rusty at it too. But just seeing a level like this feels very much at home, considering I love going to concerts, and seeing a concert hall like this with all these sound-based obstacles and just the whole aesthetic feeling like something that just feels fun to jump through and platform through, that's so medley. But yes, as the wave circuit, her whole idea of those speakers is that they activate in the order of red, orange, and then blue. Either that or it's orange, red, and blue, but... Oh, apparently Mr. Furiator's... You know what? No, I won't say it. Okay, but moving on. Okay, now I'm just tempted to say it.
Say it.
Are those piano keys actually not like the real deal? I always thought they were. I wasn't really paying too much attention to them in the first place.
Crap. I can't get hit again, so we are gonna have to make it a little safety strats. All right, cool. Oh, I was trying to avoid the spikes because I was worried about the speaker right here.
If anything, the spikes, I think, do more damage than the speakers, so you would have been okay. It just would have been a little more of a nuisance for the knockback.
Right. I'm going to heal here because this is a little risky on a couple parts.
Now, if Red actually fell down through that pit one room earlier, it would have sent him into a hidden portion of the stage where if he was doing the any percent or potentially a New Game Plus, depending on whether or not you already have everything unlocked, there was a health chip that you could have picked up, which even if you have collected the upgrade in itself, it still gives you a full recovery, which is always convenient.
Oh, that's bound to happen almost every time you go up this.
Alright, we're now coming up to Medley herself. Generally, seeing that big cylindrical-like enemy, I don't know its official name, but whatever it's called, chances are there's going to be a boss door coming up right behind it. And now for Medley herself. This is the second and final of the female Rebel circuits, and her shtick is all about putting on a concert. So, much like most of her stage, she uses sound-based attacks. And also, you noticed right there that when Red sent her flying after half of her health bar was gone, the audience starts to boo you, which is actually a very fun detail. Kind of hilarious.
One interesting thing about her... One interesting thing about her, if she's in a tumble state due to a burst art and she lands on the spring, she will bounce from the spring and immediately recover. So you won't be able to combo after that, which is kind of annoying. But it's part of the game. It's fun.
I also love that the screen behind the stage gives the KO letters almost like in traditional Scott Pilgrim versus the World Fashion, which shout out to the new Netflix series that's going to come out soon. It's like an actual animated series of the original source material, and I heard Michael Cera from the live action film is coming back as Scott, which is great.
Neat. I have not heard about this.
I think it's called... I'll look it up when we have a break. I know it's a different name, though. I know that for a fact. So, moving into Crash's stage. And, oh god, what was your name again? I think it was Break Circuit?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Break.
Yeah. So, you all are probably familiar with Mega Man X1. I mean, we had a race of that game earlier in the Game Over Cancer program. So, you're probably all familiar with Armored Armadillo, which is what this stage generally takes off of. Maybe a little bit of Tunnel Rhino. But you're also noticing some collapsing blocks along the way. If Red stands on them, they will eventually just go poof, but then they will respawn eventually. But he can also attack them to make them go away much faster if he needs to. And like with any Mega Man X inspired game as well, we also got the ride armor. I think it's called Power Walker, if what I remember hearing from Arctic is correct. And Yeah, that's just a funny way of saying, yeah, we basically just brought over ride armor, which, hey, a rose can still go by any other name. It'll still be beautiful in my book, and I love it so much because that thing not only tanks damage for you, it also does a couple of different attacks. Like, if you press the hookshot button, it'll actually do an extended little drill attack, kind of like Spark Mandrill from Maverick Hunter X, the PSP remake. But once it does run out of health, it will explode. And unlike the ride armor, it will do so pretty quickly, so not much of a chance to use it to the last breath, unfortunate to say.
So the big gimmick with this stage is those blocks that keep coming down. It takes 2 hits to break them unless they've already come down on a platform underneath it, where they will take 1 hit to break. Or you can use this Armadillo Rider, and it'll instantly break after 1 attack.
One of the big things, too, about the Powered Walker is that it's also invulnerable to spikes, so just having that in general for this stage is a overall massive help just to negate most of the obstacles.
And you don't take physical damage either when you're riding it.
Right. Absolutely a plus. Basically, it's like catch block, but without having catch block.
Literally a damage tank.
Alright, we're moving into the crash fight. So this guy is going to go into a burst technique in just a moment, where he will then summon a bunch of those gigantic-looking breakable blocks coming from the ceiling. It's very easily avoidable. Usually one of the blocks is going to have a busted state, which means it only takes just a few hits to break as compared to the fully non-cracked variant. And there's not really much else to it, but do be mindful of the blocks that he does send your way from the ceiling with just about each jump he makes. If you are at very low health, it is very easy to die this way.
Yeah, sometimes it's hard to pay attention to the bricks that are already falling, him riding around the stage, and just trying to attack everything that's going on.
We're almost done with the Rebel circuits. We got one more stage to go, and this is arguably the hardest one of them. It's one that most people would personally prefer to do last for that reason. But in a minimalist run, one of the biggest benefits to this category is that you can basically run any order of the Rebel circuits as you like. There's not really going to be much of a difference going from one to the next, because it's not like you're going to be buying any other booster chips or burst techniques, so economy management is not really going to factor into this, nor is rescue management. None of those things really matter in the long run of things, which, in my opinion, also does make this a beginner-friendly enough category, but it also does come at the downside of not having some of the benefits that the other categories of any percent and New Game Plus would have to them. So, it's a catch-22. Now, another thing to mention about this is there are 2 modes to play the game with, and Red is running on normal mode, which, as would imply, it involves having burst techniques that you use via your energy pips and only your energy pips. Now, if you were playing on circuit mode, the benefit to that is you can also expend a little bit of your health to use more of those burst techniques. The difference here is that instead of having health pickups and energy pickups that upgrade both either or of those bars, it's all health pickups, and they only really give you, I think it's 2 points of health each.
This is my favorite stage. So it's a little bit of
balancing. Oh, mine too. And in fact, this is probably my favorite stage theme.
Yes. But the boss is terrible, though.
Yeah, unfortunate to say, because I love his design and I love his personality. He's basically Kabuto from Naruto, a little schemer in himself, but trying to deal with him in a speedrun is not the easiest, let's put it that way.
Right.
We'll get to why when we get to his boss fight, but we got to at least explain what Red is doing with this little key room. So, you notice that he has to break those little crystals that contain the key in them, but the animation can be entirely skipped. He does not have to witness the door being unlocked, and he does not have to go through the portals, because as it turns out, reloading to the latest checkpoint just does the rest of the job, and that's it. So we only do this in this stage because with the checkpoints being within that hub of portals, then yeah, it just makes the most sense. Anywhere else, and you'd be having to make a big walk all the way back to wherever you were before.
And also, ironically, if you attack the key, it'll take 4 hits of damage. And even if you use a burst, it'll still only take 1. But if you toss an enemy at it, it will instantly break.
One of the big things, too, about using throwing enemies as an advantage is you can use them to chain reaction things. So let's say that you throw a shield at the user that was holding onto it before. You can then have the ragdolled body of the user of the shield crash into another enemy, and that'll basically cause that thing to be damaged, and so on and so forth. So a little bit of a domino effect, if you will. Alright, now we're moving into Hash's boss fight, and one of the big things that makes him very hard to deal with as a, well, thing to speedrun against, he's got this little after image thing going on for him. He just, you know, warps around the field. He tries to initiate these after image clones or just false versions of himself, and of course we just want to hit the real one and nothing but the real one. But his moveset is overall, how to put it, it's kind of like crowd control in a way. I feel like that's a good way of putting it, which that'd be good for the player character, not so good for the boss though. So,
oh, that was nice.
Yeah, that was pretty good. Let's see if you get the little... Okay, no, that wasn't going to play, unfortunate. But something that this boss does have going for him is if you manage to finish him off while he's outside of the battlefield, you can skip the finish text, and he'll just go straight into the explosion animation once he warps back. So, you know, it removes the slowdown that accompanies the finish animation.
I don't know if you've noticed in this stage, but after you end up defeating him, the screen in the back goes black, and it is like the power went out, essentially. Which I like the little detail, which is like half of the boss stages, after you defeat the boss, something happens in the background. Just like you pointed out in Medley, how the KO pops up.
Yeah, absolutely. So at this point in the game, we would have normally seen a cutscene following the defeat of the final Rebel Circuit, but because we are on speedrun mode, that's completely skipped. But the whole plot of the game goes where Colonel, our commanding officer of Guardian Corps, has now officially been corrupted by some unknown presence that's been seemingly plaguing his very circuitry ever since after a certain amount of bosses were defeated. And the game does a good job of just telling the story of how things are slowly but surely progressing from bad to worse as you keep going through those Rebel circuits. And even more unfortunate is the fact that normally, with each stage beat, Colonel has a little bit of funny dialogue to share after you complete your mission. Once you beat the 8th Rebel Circuit, that does not happen. You just never get that from him. And now we're moving into the arc itself. So, the lore of the game goes as follows, where we are in a robotic futuristic society, where it's literally just robots, no humans to be found on this planet, and Robot Society found this major structure called the Ark, which we have now went inside, and in having discovered the Ark, it also led to the arrival of the Virus Army, which is a bunch of robots that have been corrupted and essentially acting like Mavericks, more or less. That's basically what they are. It's the equivalent to that in the Mega Man X series. Oh,
missed my jump there.
It happens. So with the Virus Army having been fought off for several years by the Guardian Corps, which originally consisted of all of the circuits, including the Gravity Circuit, at this rate, the only one that seemed to survive the carnage was, well, the Gravity Circuit himself. But in the present year, the Virus Army has returned. The Gravity Circuit's body was supposedly found and recovered by Guardian HQ, and they were trying to heal him up, but effectively, I guess you could say their treatment wasn't really progressing as fast as they thought it could have, but Kai still wakes up at the first sign of danger, and we eventually find out that our friends, our former comrades, turned into the Rebel Circuits that we knew them as during their battles. So now, as we are going through the depths of the Ark, This is the late stage of the game, and instead of the traditional 4 that you typically see in any kind of Mega Man experience, 4 at minimum that is, we actually have 3. So it's a bit more like what Mega Man X4 technically is, where you had the spaceport, you had Final Weapon 1 with whatever character you're playing as, and then General, so it was technically 1 stage, 2 areas. And then there was the boss refight leading into Sigma himself. It's a similar sort of structure here, but not quite the same. So now, here is the very fella that normally we would be buying our burst techniques from. Some people like to call him Pumpkin Man, but his official name, Niga, because we Americans have a little bit of a fear of saying it the absolute wrong way unintentionally, and we know for a fact that, I think, Dominic was the one who effectively said, oh, it'll be fine, because he was trying to go for some sort of a reference with the character's name, but,
He's so hard to hit sometimes, jeez.
Just as it is hard to pronounce his name.
So, you probably noticed on the 3rd phase, I intentionally took damage, and that's because it immediately stops his burst attack, because he'll do 3 different burst attacks. The first one, actually, he does it 3 times, then he does 2 additional ones, so it just saves a lot of time, probably a good 8 to 10 seconds just by tanking damage when he does that first one.
And you also notice that in the 2nd phase, he started using booster chips, whereas in the 3rd final phase, the surprise phase, it was burst techniques. Probably my favorite boss of the game, like, hands down.
Yep. This is my favorite level, so best of luck to me with these little tricks that hopefully I can pull off.
And also, shout out to the trailer theme that's playing around. If you go to this game's Steam page and you listen to the video that involves the overall launch trailer of the game, this is what you'll be hearing.
Oh, no.
Oh.
Damn.
Oh, that's a good one to go with Fariator. So I just noticed that the German localization of the game calls him Anti, which is actually a really good alternative name. But yeah. Whoa.
He didn't grab it.
Gotta
All
be
right,
a little careful there.
I'm gonna take
Yeah,
this
get the
health as a
get the
backup.
health. The cool thing about health pickups is that anything coming from Kai will be able to pick it up. So if it's the hook shot that touches it, or even his little hit
Wow.
wave, oh.
Start over.
Yeah, this is obviously a little bit more challenging as it's meant to be, and in the arc, you're starting to see level themes being reused. We did see some of that also within Arc 1, so yeah, it's some fun stuff.
Oh,
Fun
jeez.
in maybe some loose terms, because that does mean a lot of stage hazards, which causes Kai to respawn a lot. But it's still a fun stage. There's no denying that much.
You didn't get to see my trick there because I botched it. Well, I gotta
explain that one.
Well, essentially, what you can do is you can completely jump over that first platform, and if the phase actually works out great, you can actually completely grapple swing underneath it. Oh. And sometimes what happens, you can grab a ledge and you just hang on it, and that really messes up your momentum sometimes. Like right there, I thought I clipped the grab, and I'm landing on top of it when I don't want to land on top of it. I'm trying to do this.
Now, sometimes you can use the respawning animation to your benefit, where if Kai is detected to have a certain positioning within the hazard that he touches, the game can push you forward in the stage. We don't see this a whole lot, but we can technically see it happen in, say, Arc 3, for example. So if it looks like he got pressed closer to the top of safe ground, which we're supposed to actually be going down, the game might push us down. Not sure why this happens, but
Oops, safety.
whoa, nicely.
And I botched it. I jinxed it.
You still had a very good recovery at that first moment there, so I gotta commend that.
Oh.
Oh,
Or I'm gonna slow it down. I'm
Like
gonna slow it down real quick. Hold on. Oh, I almost. Oh, nope, 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 nope. Okay.
This is kind of funny.
I don't want to I don't want to restart all this.
No, I feel you.
Wait for the glob. Okay. I'm healing up here. All right, let me see if this will work.
Please do.
I don't think you've seen this yet.
Okay, let's see it. Ooh. Ooh.
Oh!
Nice. That was still a pretty good trick to see. Let's see it again. Yeah. Although I will admit where he ended up hitting the lava hazard is very easy to just touch in general. Like, even I cannot deny myself having to touch that, like, by accident. Just no matter how many times I practice a stage like this one, it's probably going to happen. And you can imagine it's because of the thin platforming thrown into that.
And one thing that's great about health pickups, if you see them lying around, is you don't actually have to necessarily grab them. You can just touch them by punching them or doing an up kick, and you'll actually end up getting the health instead. I'm going to take this.
As I was trying to mention earlier, anytime you see Kai's attacks use that little energy wave that follows the momentum of the strike itself, it is capable of picking things up too. Alright, so, boss rush time, except done in a very, very clever way. This is the Circuit Crystal. This boss is going to have several different phases, each of them going to be based on the different circuits that we fought throughout the main stages, the main portion of the game. The big difference is that after we have defeated the Circuit Crystal while in that state, it then uses its burst technique to send us into a dimension where we fight a sort of holographic version of the circuit, and it immediately goes into its burst technique. So in the case of, say, Blade right there, we had to dodge that little ice tornado again. And then once we get to Medley, she's going to spawn a bunch of speakers that'll try to do sound waves, while she herself does the little, well, sound wave of her own on the ground. Alright, there we go. And the order in which the game chooses what the Circuit Crystal takes on is very much RNG. But a fun fact about this fight is that if you do happen to die to it, if you are playing on easy difficulty, no matter which circuit number you are on, the game will always keep the progress tracked so that no matter how many times you die, you will always be on the last circuit that you had defeated, and the remaining ones will still be there, yes, but it's not like you'll have to do this fight all over again. You do have to take on the Circuit Crystal, though, in its base state as Red did when the fight began. Which I would say is what takes after the Gravity Circuit. I'm pretty sure of that much anyway. Alright, come on, Hash, play ball here. Fun fact, since we won't be seeing it in the actual fight, Hash can potentially laugh, sort of like Shao Kahn in the Mortal Kombat series, and if you manage to hit him within the small window that you have while he does it, you get an achievement, and it's very deserved. So one strategy that the Minimalist run does unfortunately have to forego is that it is possible to use a combination of two other burst techniques in Gravity Dash and Heavenly Pile Drive, and if done just right, you can grab the circuit once you have officially spawned into the holographic battlefield, and if the Heavenly Pile Drive connects, you will prevent them from using the burst technique. It's really something to behold. But it's also hard to do on certain fellas, and you can probably imagine that Hash and Blade are two of those fellas. All right,
Stop jumping around.
Oh. Yeah, Trace is the gamer circuit. I mean, the D-pad for her head is there for a reason. She knows that she's got to jump because about all platformer characters like to jump. It's usually the what's the phrase that's adequate here? Stomp to win, I guess. All right, now into Bit's fight.
Which he's much faster in this phase.
I actually didn't think about that one.
Oh, of course you're gonna get me right at the end.
It's just tragic.
I missed my jump cancel.
Something that the circuits can do that Red thankfully has avoided up till now is they can choose to use their burst techniques again. When they do so, though, is not always predetermined. It can be more or less RNG, just like whatever else they decide to do. There's really no set pattern behind it, unlike the Mega Man bosses of the classic titles. So the fights generally play out with a hint of RNG to it, and yet there's generally going to be some rhyme or reason behind what they decide to do. So it's not like it's going to come out of nowhere. Usually there's going to be some sort of tell behind it, or the attack is not so fast that it's just hard to prepare for. So these bosses really were made with a little bit of care and thought put into just the whole movesets, how they act, stuff like that. It's a very fair game. One that still might require a bit of skill, but easily something that just about anyone can pick up, kind of like Celeste. So now we are moving on to the final one of the refights, and once Ray's hologram is defeated, we will be donezo with this stage, because the circuit crystal will have no more circuits to fall back to, and just simply explodes.
The first time you play this in a casual run, it's awesome to see how that pans together, but it's extremely frustrating. But it's so much fun.
This boss can really throw your pace off, because if you're playing on the normal or hard difficulty, unlike the easy difficulty, the game will only track your current progress for every 2 circuits you defeat. Which, technically, Red was playing on the normal difficulty, so if he were to die to Ray, he would have also had to fight the circuit that he defeated before Ray.
Mr. Farriator's got a message.
Saying that the general methodology the bosses use for burst techniques is that they will do a minimum N amount of actions before doing their burst again. What N is can change between the bosses. Oh yeah, that makes sense.
Alright, final stage.
Alright, Arc 3 coming here, and we've got a series of split pathways. You can choose whichever one you wish to do. Whatever you decide to do, whatever you feel is the faster one, is it's something that usually varies between runners, really. There's no real right or wrong answer, but I know for a fact the Gordon Ramsay method is right and then left for the other 3 sections, because there will be 3 other times after this one where we'll see something like this. But each of them have their different sort of obstacle preferences, whereas right here for this one, you'll notice it's all about those laser tripwires. You've got to activate the switches in order to open up the doorways, and then the moment that you hit the laser tripwires, the stuff will start to close. Whether it's fast or immediate or just plain slow, that's still manageable to get through even as it's closing. It all varies, but yeah, there's a good reason why I can understand Gordon's preference to the right path. It's what I usually go for as well. Next up is all about the warp portals, as we saw within Hash's stage, with a mixture of spikes on top of that, because, yeah, it's a Mega Man inspired game. You can't get enough spikes. Apparently. Yeah, there's really not much else to explain with this level, so I'll just go in a little bit further down the line, where once Red passes through the next 2 sections of the level, he'll have a final stretch of hallway to go through, and then we'll be getting into the final boss. And this is where this level can be pretty infamous. Not necessarily unbeatable per se, but you definitely want to make it a point to try and study as much of what the final bosses can do, and know what their move sets are all about. Because I guess you could say we truly have ran into the metaphorical gauntlet by the time we get to that stuff. Ooh, wow, that's... oh gosh. Yeah, that's a bit of swag. A risky kind, but yeah,
it worked.
I respect that. So, once we get to the final bosses, Red will want to be mindful of his health. Because especially on Minimalist, you do not have much safety. You have to be very careful, because even if you defeat the first final boss, if you die to the second one, you gotta start all over from the first phase again. And this is generally true with Mega Man bosses or Mega Man X bosses, but in the case of Gravity Circuit, that's where the real challenge of this level comes into play, because right here, this is just a warm-up, a little reminder of the stuff that you've been through. Also, yes, those are re-destructible blocks, except they can be spikes. And it's still a stage hazard that causes Kai to respawn.
Oh, I thought I landed on the edge there. And I have to start all the way back.
Yeah, I would probably recommend the right path for this one.
For a casual play, yes. For speedrunning, left is definitely faster than right.
That's fair.
This is how it should have been the first time.
The game knows sometimes.
Oh, come on.
Commentator's curse.
What's that, 3 deaths? 4?
Yeah, I would say 3 is just about accurate.
There we go. I'm going to take this just in case. Because these guys aren't nice. Oh. I thought I had burst and I didn't, because if you die and restart at a checkpoint, unless you actually repair yourself, you don't get any burst pips.
Also, just take a look at how much Red got sent back. It wasn't egregious per se, but it was still quite a bit.
It's the worst one to get reset on out of these 4.
I agree. Alright, I'm just going to take a bit of a break as we make our way on and over to the boss chamber. But yeah, this is where the rubber hits the road. Alright, man, good luck.
Thanks.
So, this is the very reason why my first ever Minimalist run took up to 4 hours to finish. And you know what? I was still proud of the result. But, yeah, as I mentioned, we've got 2 bosses to go through before we call time. And Colonel here, Corrupted Colonel, is a little bit like, say, Zangief, in that he uses all sorts of attacks between his lariats, his little shockwaves, and sometimes trying to pile drive you as well. When you send him into half health, though, the big fella on the background will summon a burst shield, which takes after the hardwire shield or hardware shield that Kai himself.
Oh, literally in between the attack.
That's unfortunate.
I've never
seen that. That's never happened before. That's an actual. We can count that for the bingo cards right there. That is a bona fide never happened before here for us.
So in the speedrun, if you stand right here, this is where the scene actually transitions. If you're on any other part of the screen, Kai walks to this specific position. So you want to try to get closer to it so that way you'll save a few seconds depending on where you're at.
Also, supposedly, if you hold the start button whilst Commander Circuit is undergoing his animation, it does speed up on speedrun mode. Although I'm not sure if they actually went through with that. It was something that Farriator told me, though, as part of what was supposed to happen. But yes, we have now moved into the true final boss, Commander Circuit, who is the leader of the circuits, at least originally speaking. There's a huge plot dump or lore dump that goes into here that comes as a major surprise, one that's executed really nicely. So it's at this point that you start to really realize the original purpose of the circuits, and it's just really something else. So we highly implore that you all give this game a try, because... Oh, time's on the final hit, by the way.
Yep.
And...
Oh, nope. Missed it.
Almost.
As soon as this hits, time.
Time. GG, Red.
Thank you. Woof.
Oh, that was quite a wild ride.
Was my IGT 45 and some change?
We'll have to see at the end of the credits.
Which, you know, we skipped the credits with speedrun mode. Oh, this
We
game
do.
is so much fun. I love this game.
It really is. It absolutely is. It's just, oh,
My
I'm so happy. I'm so happy to be a runner of this.
my world record run, I think, is 44:10.
Yeah,
So
this was pretty close.
If I if I didn't die 3 times, I probably would have had it.
Also, if you did not collect that rescue there too from Bit Stage.
Oh, we forgot about that. Remember?
Well, we were supposed to forget about that anyway. I guess I will never forget.
Well, thank you for everyone that stopped by. That is the run. So I would highly recommend, if you haven't played this game or if you've never seen it before, I highly recommend picking it up. It's a great price. It's so much fun. There's a lot of replay value within the game, especially because there is an additional mode here. Tempest, thank you very much for coming and joining me on comms. I greatly appreciate it.
My pleasure, man. This game really is just a fun time. And I also want to give a shout out to Domesticated Ant Games for giving me a code to this, because I had the pleasure of trying out the demo during a vacation to Sweden. And let me tell you, the first time I ever tried this out, I just fell in love with it near immediately. I could not stop doing this. So the fact that they reached out to me before the launch was one of the most generous things that's ever happened to me, and I will always be grateful for that. This game is available on Steam, Epic, GOG for PC. It's available for all operating systems, and if you're more of a console gamer, you can get this on Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, and PlayStation 5. Please do so. And also, there is a physical version that is in the works as well if you are more of a physical gamer. So there are there's a variety of options, and this game is also supposedly runnable on old hardware like a Windows hecking Vista. They really did a good job of just optimizing a lot of things, and it still looks impressive at the end of the day.
Azuma,
shout out to this.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say big shout out to the speedrunning community, especially Strizer, who he himself is a speedrunner of this game. You can find his run on our leaderboard, and thank you so much for having us.
I was just going to ask, Azuma, do I have time to show one trick? Depending on how time...
Yeah, sure, go for it.
All right.
And while you're showing off that trick, briefly I'll mention that all the proceeds of this event are going to the Canadian Cancer Society, so if anybody wants to get any last-minute donos in before we end the night, now is your time to do so. And we will have more runs tomorrow, so I will be back after you're done this trick.
It shouldn't be too long, so I essentially want to show the card jump trick, and particularly you get to show it off a couple times in the first arc stage. And if I can pull this off in 2 different areas, you'll see what we've learned in the speedrunning community and how we've been able to manipulate this. Let me see if I actually have everything. Yep, that should be good. Nope.
Another thing to note about the version 1.0.8 is that you now have loadouts, which is a really cool quality of life update, and something that I can easily see making a huge difference in New Game Plus runs.
You want to explain function overload?
Function overload is a burst technique that you get from one of the circuits, and in using it, it not only makes Kai speed up in terms of just all of his movement, but he gains a double jump as well, which when paired with the air jumper booster chip, makes for a triple jump. And it is one of the coolest features around. It also boosts his attack a little bit, but as a trade-off, you can take, you will take a lot more damage for it.
So we got to see the first part of this box jump run. Essentially, you can do this and then dive kick on enemies, and I keep missing that. But it carries your momentum really far, and if I can get this one right here, I'll give it 2 more tries. I haven't practiced this today. I didn't think I was going to have a chance to do it.
Come on, you got this, man.
Nope. That's not the cool one. The cool one is this one if I can get it. Wow, I got a gravity dash out of that one? Oh my goodness. The pressure is on.
Gravity dash is a cool technique that takes after Fox's Firefox special from Super Smash Bros. The cool part about it is that you have a moment to press the directional stick in any direction you choose, and the move will then fling Kai in that movement, which it's one of the few instances of a burst technique that can go diagonally as well on your inputs.
All right, I don't want to keep everybody because it's almost bedtime for a lot of people, I'm sure.
Yeah, it just turned midnight over here, so felt.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate the great showing of a great game. I'm definitely going to be looking out for that physical copy that you mentioned. Yeah, I'm definitely going to pick this one up when it shows up. And yeah, that being said, we will be back tomorrow with even more great games. So thank you very much again, EternalRedGamer and Tempest Mask, for showing off that awesome game.
Yes, thank you
Our
for having me.
pleasure.
Have a great night, everybody. We're going to take us out with some tunes.
Bye.
Take care.